The frightened guessed the galaxy knew one thing for sure: humans were terrifying. Stories spread across thousands of systems spoke of their teeth, their eyes, and their strange hunger for meat. When the small alien girl named Lyra crash-landed on an unknown blue planet, she thought her life was over. Her escape pod slammed into the forest floor, smoke rising into the sky. She crawled out, shaking, her silver skin bruised and her thin arms trembling. Her people, the Nuvi, were herbivores from a peaceful moon. To them, humans were the monsters of legend, creatures who roasted anything that moved. When she heard footsteps, her hearts pounded. A group of tall, rough-looking humans appeared through the trees, one man in a dark jacket leading them. His boots crunched against the leaves as he knelt beside her. "Hey there, easy. You're hurt," he said gently. She didn't understand the words, but she saw his teeth when he spoke. Sharp, white, predatory. Panic exploded inside her. She screamed, backing away, tears streaming down her glowing eyes. The humans froze, startled. "She's scared," one woman whispered, lowering her weapon. "She thinks we're going to hurt her." The man raised both hands slowly. "We're not here to harm you," he said again, softer this time. But all Lyra saw were their canines. Their smell, warm, rich with life, made her imagine the stories told on her world. Humans cook the flesh of others for pleasure. They smile before they bite. When they tried to help her stand, she shrieked and begged, her translator finally flickering online. "Please, don't eat me. I'm small, I have no meat, please don't eat me." The humans exchanged stunned looks. Then, against all her expectations, they laughed. Not a cruel laugh, but one full of surprise and disbelief. The woman knelt beside her, shaking her head. "Eat you? Oh no, sweetheart. We don't eat people." Lyra didn't believe it. She saw a bird land nearby, a small creature, and the human boy tossed it crumbs instead of snatching it. She blinked, confused. "You feed prey?" The man chuckled. "We call them friends," he said, pointing at the bird. The hours passed, and she was brought to a small camp. They treated her wounds, offered her water, and wrapped her in a warm blanket. Lyra sat by the fire, her fear mixing with curiosity. She noticed that the humans shared their food with each other, laughing quietly as the sun set. The smell of cooked plants, not flesh, filled the air. When she refused to eat, the woman smiled and placed a piece of fruit in her hands. "Try it, sweet." Lyra tasted it, expecting poison. Instead, the flavor burst across her tongue and her stomach growled. She ate the whole thing before realizing it. The humans just smiled again, not asking for anything in return. That night, as she lay near the fire, she whispered to herself, maybe the stories were wrong. But when she looked up and saw the man cleaning his sharp knife under the moonlight, her fear returned. Her translator hummed softly. "They are kind, but they still have blades," she thought. He noticed her gaze and stopped. It's not for you," he said, tossing it aside. "It's for protection, not hunting." Lyra's mind couldn't understand such contradictions. Predators who protect, carnivores who share food, monsters who laugh kindly. The next morning, she followed them to a nearby human base. Massive ships rested there, carrying supplies for alien aid programs. She saw crates marked with alien symbols, relief goods for war refugees. Her own people's language was on one of them. She gasped. "You help others?" The woman smiled warmly. "We try." Lyra's world turned upside down. Everything she had ever believed about humans shattered that morning. Yet deep inside, she still feared the unknown. She couldn't shake the thought, if they're not monsters, what are they? She would soon find the answer, and it would change how the galaxy saw humanity forever. The truth beneath the stars. Lyra woke up to the hum of engines. The humans' camp had moved closer to a large metallic craft, sleek, dark, and enormous compared to her small shuttle. It shimmered with blue lights as the morning mist rolled away. A flag fluttered nearby, showing a blue planet surrounded by stars. She watched silently as humans worked in teams, carrying supplies, repairing machinery, and tending to wounded alien refugees from other worlds. They were everywhere, strong, loud, laughing one moment and serious the next. She couldn't understand how such chaotic beings could be kind. One human noticed her watching. It was the same man who had helped her last night. He waved her over with a grin. "Come on, little traveler, you should see this." Her translator caught the words. "What, see what?" she asked, still cautious. He led her to the cargo bay where long crates were stacked in rows. Lyra expected weapons, but when he opened one, she saw glowing vials of medicine, food packets, and blankets. "This is what we send out," he said, gesturing to the crates. "Relief for planets hit by famine, war, or collapse." Her eyes widened. "You give this away?" He nodded. "Every time we find a world in trouble, we send help." Lyra shook her head in disbelief. "But why? You could rule them, demand tribute, use their weakness." He smiled sadly. "Because we were once weak too." The words hit her harder than she expected. She looked at his rough hands, the scars on his arms, the tiredness in his eyes. There was no cruelty there, only memory. As the day went on, she followed him through the base. Everywhere she saw the same thing: humans building, fixing, and protecting. They taught other species how to use machines, helped them grow food, and repaired ships that weren't their own. They didn't ask for payment, only that no one go hungry. In one tent, she saw small alien children playing with human soldiers, laughing as they chased drones that projected colorful lights. The humans laughed too, their heavy boots thudding against the metal floor as they pretended to lose the game on purpose. Lyra's chest tightened. She remembered the stories told to Nuvi children, of humans burning worlds, consuming life, enslaving weaker races. Yet here they were, feeding and protecting those same races. When she sat beside the woman who had helped her the night before, she asked softly, "Why does the galaxy fear you, if you are kind?" The woman smiled faintly. "Because fear is easier to spread than truth. And we did make mistakes. A long time ago, humans fought wars across the stars. We were angry, scared, alone. The galaxy remembered our violence, but not what came after." "What came after?" Lyra asked. "We learned," the woman said simply. "We learned that strength isn't about destruction, it's about protection." That evening, Lyra stood outside the camp as the sky turned crimson. Human ships lifted off one by one, heading toward other worlds. Their engines burned bright like small suns. She watched them until the last light vanished into the clouds. She turned to the man and asked, "Do you still eat meat?" He chuckled softly. "Sometimes. But we don't eat thinking beings. We eat to live, not to harm." She hesitated, then whispered, "My people think you eat everything." He looked up at the sky and said quietly, "We used to, but not anymore. We've changed. Maybe the galaxy just hasn't noticed yet." For a moment there was silence between them, broken only by the soft wind. Then a loud alarm blared across the base. Human soldiers ran past them, shouting. The man grabbed his helmet, his calm expression turning sharp. "What's happening?" Lyra cried. He looked toward the horizon where dark shapes appeared. Alien ships descending fast, weapons hot. "Raiders," he said grimly. "They prey on refugee convoys." "Refugees?" she whispered. "But there are children here." He gave her a quick nod. "Then we protect them. That's what humans do." Before she could speak, the humans moved into formation. Massive guns rotated skyward and ships powered up their shields. The air filled with the electric crackle of energy weapons charging. Lyra watched, trembling, as the same creatures she once thought were monsters prepared to defend the helpless. And when the first enemy beam cut through the sky, the humans did not run. They stood their ground. Lyra's fear turned into awe. These beings didn't fight for conquest, they fought to shield others. In that moment, she understood. Humanity was not what the stories claimed. They were something far greater. When monsters protect the weak, the sky above burned with streaks of red fire. Alien raiders descended from orbit, their ships shaped like fanged beasts. They fired without mercy, bolts of plasma tearing across the human base. The ground trembled as explosions rippled through the camp. Lyra fell to the ground, her small hands clutching the dirt. Fear flooded her again, the same fear she'd felt since childhood. She expected the humans to flee, to hide behind their machines. But when she looked up, what she saw left her speechless. The humans didn't run. They moved as one, calm, precise, unbroken. The man shouted orders and soldiers took positions around the base's perimeter. Drones zipped into the air, releasing bright shields that shimmered like invisible domes. The woman Lyra had spoken to earlier sprinted through the chaos, helping alien children into shelters. "Stay low," someone yelled, pulling Lyra behind a barrier just as a blast hit nearby. Dirt and smoke filled the air, but the humans kept firing, lines of glowing blue energy cutting through the enemy ranks. Lyra's translator buzzed with the noise of commands. Words like cover fire and evacuation and shield frequency. These were not the sounds of beasts. These were the sounds of warriors defending life. From her hiding place, she watched as one of the human ships lifted off. It turned mid-air, firing a blinding pulse of energy that destroyed 3 raider crafts in a single strike. The sky lit up like a second sunrise, but then one of the enemy ships broke through. It aimed straight for the refugee camp where unarmed aliens huddled together in fear. Lyra screamed, "They're going to die." The man heard her. Without hesitation, he ran straight into the open, his weapon glowing with heat. He fired shot after shot, drawing the raiders' attention toward himself. The ship focused its cannons on him, ignoring everyone else. "Run!" he shouted to the others. Lyra couldn't move. She watched as the massive blast struck near him, throwing him backward. Smoke covered everything. The sound of the explosion echoed for miles. "No," she whispered, her chest tightening. Tears filled her eyes. The man who had fed her, who had smiled when she begged for mercy, was gone. But when the smoke cleared, she saw movement. He was still alive, bloody, coughing, but standing. He raised a small beacon device and slammed it into the ground. A deep hum filled the air. The earth shook. From behind the base, a colossal human war machine emerged, tall as a mountain forged in steel and fire. It was a relic of old wars, its metal frame scarred from centuries past, yet its eyes glowed blue as it powered on. "Guardian protocol active," a voice boomed from the machine. Lyra's jaw dropped. The giant raised its arm, releasing a beam of white light that tore through the enemy fleet. Every raider ship in its path disintegrated into ash. The sky cleared. Silence fell. Humans cheered. Refugees cried. And Lyra stood frozen, staring at the machine that glowed under the fading sunlight. The man limped toward her, covered in dust. "Are you okay, little one?" he asked, forcing a smile. You fought for us," she said quietly. "You almost died for us." He nodded slowly. "That's what we do. Doesn't matter what species, what world, you're alive, so you matter." She shook her head in disbelief. "Why? We feared you. We told lies about you." He looked at the burning horizon and sighed. "Maybe that's why we help, to prove the story's wrong." Later that night, when the fires died and the refugees rested safely, Lyra sat beside the humans near the campfire again. The stars reflected in her large eyes. She had seen war before, but never like this. The humans didn't fight for power. They fought with purpose. One child from another alien race approached her, holding a small loaf of human bread. "They gave me this," the child said, smiling. "They said we can eat as much as we want." Lyra took the bread and stared at it. "They gave it freely?" "Yes," the child said happily. "They said no one goes hungry here." As Lyra broke the bread in her hands, something inside her broke too, the last of her old fear. Humans were not monsters. They were guardians. And as she looked toward the stars, she whispered, "Maybe it's time the galaxy learned the truth." The galaxy learns what humanity truly is. The following morning, smoke still drifted across the valley, rising like ghosts from the shattered battlefield. The human base, though scarred and burned, stood firm. The refugees had survived. The humans had protected them all. Lyra moved slowly through the camp, watching soldiers tend to the wounded, both human and alien alike. A human medic stitched the arm of a reptilian child while humming a soft song. Another soldier handed water to a trembling insectoid trader, patting his back gently. No one asked for thanks. No one demanded loyalty. They simply helped. She walked to the edge of the camp and looked at the horizon, where the giant war machine still stood silent. Its steel skin was dented and scorched, but its eyes glowed faintly blue, a silent sentinel watching over them. When the man approached her, his arm was bandaged, his face tired but smiling. "You've been quiet," he said softly. Lyra nodded. "I have seen more kindness here than my people believed your kind could show." "I do not understand why the galaxy calls you monsters," he chuckled. "Because we used to be," she frowned. "Used to?" He pointed toward the distant stars. "A long time ago we destroyed each other, burned our own world, we learned pain, and when we finally reached the stars, we promised we'd never let anyone else feel what we did. That's why we built ships, not to conquer, but to protect." His voice was calm, but the weight behind it was heavy, like the silence before a storm. That evening, A group of alien leaders arrived from nearby systems. They came to inspect the aftermath, expecting to see devastation caused by Terran savages. Instead, they found humans distributing food and medicine to everyone, friend and former foe alike. Lyra stood among them as they whispered in disbelief. A scaled diplomat sneered. "You expect us to believe this? That humans defend the weak? You are predators." "You always have been," the man simply said. "Then stay and watch." They stayed, and they watched. For 3 days, the humans rebuilt the refugee camp. They repaired ships, treated injuries, and buried both allies and enemies with equal honor. They sang for the fallen. They saluted even those who had tried to kill them. On the 4th day, Lyra approached the alien leaders. "You see them with your own eyes," she said. "You saw them fight and you saw them heal. Can you still call them monsters?" The scaled diplomat hesitated. His eyes shifted toward a human child handing out blankets to alien infants. "Perhaps. The stories are old," he muttered. Lyra smiled softly. The galaxy forgot that monsters can change. Soon news spread beyond the camp. Other worlds began to whisper new tales, not of human cruelty but of human courage. Transmission networks carried footage of humans saving alien families, standing before fire to shield the helpless. And for the first time in centuries, the galaxy began to question the legend of the Terran beasts. One evening, Lyra stood on the observation deck of a human transport ship. Stars stretched endlessly before her, thousands of worlds that had once feared this small blue planet's children. The woman medic joined her, smiling. "You'll be famous soon, you know. The little Nuvi who learned the truth." Lyra laughed quietly. "I didn't learn it. I saw it." The woman looked at her kindly. "That's how learning really happens." Suddenly, a transmission alert blinked on the ship's console. The human commander stepped forward, reading the signal. His expression hardened. "Distress call," he said. "Outer colony under siege. Civilian transport trapped." Without hesitation, the crew jumped into motion. Engines roared, lights flared, and the ship turned sharply toward the coordinates. Lyra's heart raced. "You just fought a battle. You're still wounded. Why go again?" The commander's voice was steady. "Because someone else needs help." She felt tears in her eyes. "You never stop, do you?" He smiled faintly. "Neither does the universe. That's why someone has to keep standing." As the stars stretched into bright lines of light, the ship jumped into hyperspace. Lyra held onto the rail, staring into the streaking void. For the first time, she wasn't afraid of humans. She was proud to stand beside them. In her heart, she made a silent vow. When she returned to her world, she would tell everyone the truth. She would tell them what she saw, the courage, the compassion, the unbreakable will of humanity. The galaxy would hear her words, and maybe then, they would stop fearing the monsters from Earth and start learning from them instead. The message that changed the galaxy, the human ship drifted through the stars like a silver arrow cutting through darkness. Inside, Lyra sat before a large screen, her small hands shaking as she prepared to speak. The humans had asked her to send a transmission to her homeworld, to tell them she was safe. But Lyra had decided to do something greater. She would tell the galaxy what she had seen. The commander stood behind her, giving a quiet nod. "The line is open. The whole Nuvi network will hear you." Lyra took a deep breath. Her voice trembled at first, but grew steadier as she spoke. "To my people, and to every world that fears the name of humanity, I speak as one who has seen the truth." The words echoed across the ship's silent bridge. "When my vessel crashed on Earth, I believed I had fallen into the pit of monsters. I begged them not to eat me. I feared their teeth, their strength, their terrible stories. But those same hands I feared were the ones that lifted me up. Those teeth only smiled with kindness. Those eyes, bright as stars, watched over me when I was helpless." Her voice grew stronger. "They are not what we were told. Humans do not rule through fear. They protect through love, through pain, through sacrifice. I saw them fight not for glory, not for conquest, but for strangers. For children. For hope." The commander looked away, hiding the emotion in his eyes. The crew listened silently, the only sound the hum of the ship. "I saw them stand between fire and the innocent," she continued. "I saw them bleed to save those who once cursed their name. I saw them give their food, their warmth, their hands, even when the galaxy gave them none in return." Her translator glowed softly as the signal reached the outer colonies, spreading like wildfire. Her words appeared on thousands of screens. broadcast in hundreds of alien languages. Humanity, she said, her tone soft now, is not a species of destruction. They are the guardians of life itself. If they ever fight, it is not because they want to destroy, but because they cannot stand to see others suffer. They are the reason darkness still fears the light. The commander finally spoke, his voice quiet but proud. Transmission complete. But the message didn't stop there. Other ships picked it up, other channels shared it. Within days it reached the heart of the Galactic Council, the same council that had banned humans from half the galaxy. The representatives of countless worlds watched the recording in silence. For a long moment no one spoke. Then a trembling elder of the council whispered, "Have we been wrong all this time?" Across the stars, debates began. Some refused to believe it. Others demanded proof. And then the proof arrived. Thousands of testimonies from refugees, traitors, and outcasts who had been helped by human hands. Stories of kindness, sacrifice, and compassion flooded the networks. One refugee broadcast said, "They gave us shelter when no one else would." Another voice followed, "A human carried my child out of the fire." And then another, "We feared them until they saved us." The legend of the Terran monsters began to die. In its place rose a new legend of protectors, guardians, builders of peace. Weeks later, Lyra stood once more on her homeworld. The Nuvi government welcomed her as a survivor, but she could see fear still lingering in their eyes when the human ship landed behind her. She turned to them, her voice calm and sure. "You see monsters," she said, "but I saw heroes." When the human commander stepped down the ramp, the Nuvi soldiers aimed their weapons nervously. He stopped, raised his hands, and simply said, "We came to return her home." Lyra smiled and stepped forward, placing her small hand on his arm. "And to show us what true courage looks like." The crowd fell silent. Slowly, one by one, the soldiers lowered their weapons. The Nuvi leader bowed his head slightly. From that day onward, the humans were no longer whispered about as devourers or beasts. They became a symbol, a warning to those who caused harm, and a promise to those who needed help. They were no longer the monsters in the dark. They were the light that walked among the stars. As Lyra looked up at the sky one last time, she whispered the words that would echo through history. Humanity is not to be feared. Humanity is to be understood. They are not perfect, but they are proof that even in a cruel universe, kindness can survive. The human ship lifted off, its engines blazing like dawn, and from that day, the galaxy's oldest story changed forever. Now, when alien children asked their parents about humans, they no longer heard tales of monsters. They heard stories of saviors. End of story.